Journalists flocked to the old Queen Street Cafe this afternoon. It's a brasserie in central London where Kemi Badenoch was making her first major speech since becoming leader of the opposition. And it was, perhaps predictably, on the difficult issue of migration. Our political correspondent, Aggie Chambray, has more. Aggie.
I do indeed, Andrew. So this was, as you say, Kemi Badenoch, the new Conservative leader's first big speech since she was elected Conservative Party leader. It's on the eve of publication of migration stats. And she said quite a few striking things, or at least they could be striking things. So she essentially said, we're going to do this huge policy review. We already knew about that. But the things that they are going to review are things like whether or not they will leave the European Convention on Human Rights.
I thought she'd ruled that out.
Well, so did I. Well, she said during the campaign, because of course you'll remember her final contender during the campaign was Robert Jenrick. He said, we absolutely need to leave. And she said, well, that's an easy answer to a difficult question. Now she's saying, back on the table,
quite
we might
like the
do
easy
that.
Answer, actually.
Well, indeed. So she's saying they're considering that. But she said what we might end up doing is even more radical than that. What is that? We don't know yet. But the other things she said was that she basically was pretty critical of previous Conservative administrations. She said mistakes have been made, including by the last administration, including on free movement. She said the system that replaced freedom of movement was not working. She said the previous government did not deliver after the country voted for Brexit. In terms of things that she did promise, she said there's going to be a numerical cap. How big's that numerical cap going to be? We don't know. I mean, her big thing during the campaign and still to this day is that she doesn't want to commit to policy until they've done this big policy working groups. But it is striking.
Numerical caps, that's a bold thing, because I'm old and ugly enough to remember David Cameron and Theresa May and their tens of thousands and the fact that they couldn't hit that. If you put a number on it, you better hit that number.
Well, she mentioned that and said, well, the reasons those didn't work because they just said a number and then hoped it would work out. She's going to have more transparency, she says, but it's not clear transparency on what at this stage.
Did she mention the word Rwanda?
So she has previously not mentioned Rwanda. I think that was something that didn't come up today. But I think basically everything is going to be reviewed, and that's the thing that's kind of unclear at this stage, the fact that she's still talking about what she might do at a later stage, but we don't know what that is. And these big policy working groups could take a long, long time. But she's hoping to, be radical. We don't know whether she's going to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We don't know whether she's going to do a lot of things, but we do know she's going to do a numerical cap. We do know that she's going to look into these things, and we do know she wants to be radical.
She had another Prime Minister's questions today where Keir Starmer looked very comfortable. Though she was asking the right questions of him. She wasn't getting up. This always calls Prime Minister's questions, not Prime Minister's answers, for a reason. But what is the sense that you're picking up inside the party about how well she's doing? It is still very early days, but what are people saying?
So I think she had the best PMQs that she has had so far. I think the first couple that she's had, and I think there's been 3 where she's been leader, she's done 2 of them. She seemed a tiny bit uneasy and it felt she was more comfortable. And indeed, as you say, asking the right questions. And part of the reason that I think she was asking the right questions was because I spoke to someone who prepped Sir Keir Starmer afterwards and they said, yeah, we expected that to come up. So she started on questioning, would he repeat that pledge that Rachel Reeves said to the CBI on Monday?
Question, yeah.
Exactly the right question. He didn't have an answer, really. He just said, I'm not going to write the next 5 years of budgets. Number 10 haven't really wanted to repeat that. But she seemed more comfortable. And then she went on this petition. Of course, we've talked about the petition. You've talked about the petition that got over 2 million signatures to try and get a new general election. She suggested that maybe Sir Keir Starmer, and indeed her spokesperson said afterwards, that he should resign. There should be another general election, which is pretty astonishing after just 4 months in office. But I think potentially there is a feeling she probably should have punched that bruise a little more on the CBI comments
the CBI
after.
stuff. Yes, I thought it was a mistake to go on the petition, and I thought it was a mistake for Keir Starmer to say we've already had a petition. It was in July. They didn't have a petition. We had a general election. We're a parliamentary democracy, and we should defend it.